The Simple Handicap for Thursday, December 19th. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. NFL week number 16 officially upon us. 3 weeks to go. Kicks off tonight with the Denver Broncos on the road at the LA Chargers. No more threes anywhere on the board. We are down to Chargers, -2.5, left to right across the screen. And I look at the total as well, down from 42 to 41, the market low at Circa Sports. We've seen the under money originate at the sharper books on the board. Total continues to come down. All of the injury concerns for the Chargers have been at least negated as much as they can be. And sitting here at 2.5 -15, I haven't bet anything on this game yet. This is quite the adjustment down in favor of the Denver Broncos. And I know that they have been being bet week after week after week over the last month or so. Yesterday, on the live stream preview, I broke down the scheduling difference and how we've seen the Chargers closing so much better against common opponents in the last couple of weeks. And this is like the stance game that is being taken in the market. I think the importance of this game, with the winner effectively being able to dodge games at Buffalo or Kansas City in the first round of the playoffs, puts a massive importance on this game. And I get the Chargers' run offense has not been there for the last couple of weeks. The passing offenses looked really bad too. And the Broncos deserve a lot of credit for what they've done on defense. At 2.5 -15, I have a hard time thinking this goes lower. It's always tough to oppose a move like this from 3.5 through the 3. Tough to go against it. But I just don't think we see this number get much shorter than 2.5 -15. That's my take on it. I don't know if I'm going to end up on any side or total in this game. If there's any updates, and those are not done through the service, I will have it posted on the YouTube video, but let's see. I'm surprised to see Denver continuously get bet this week over the last couple of days with almost no resistance at all on the Chargers. Houston on the road at Kansas City starts off the Saturday doubleheader bright and early. Chiefs out to a 3.5-point spread, total 41.5. We're almost back to where we started in this game last week on the look-ahead line, which was 4. We got all the way to Houston -3. We are now back to Kansas City -3.5. It's been a big back and forth. Patrick Mahomes, full participant in practice again. However, it deserves the caveat, as everything looks like he is trending to play, and there's no more concerns with the ankle. Yesterday for Kansas City, it was an equally light and kind of irrelevant practice to what they held on Tuesday. They have not gone through a full, typical practice for the team so far this week. So he has been full in both of those, on track to play. You hear him speak. He's telling everybody that he is going to play. I wonder how close he is to 100%. I think that matters because we're basically getting 100% of his health priced into this line. Hollywood Brown trending to play as well in this game, which would be a boost to the offense. Don't think we get any surprises later today from the news and reports. I just wonder, as this now gets to 3.5 and we start trending back towards what this number was going to be, do we see now bettors coming back more intrigued than Houston as this trends up a little bit further? Second game of the Saturday doubleheader, Pittsburgh on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens 6 -15 at Chris this morning, 6 -10 at Buckeye. Circa the market high at 6.5 -110. The George Pickens injury misreporting and clip sharing and back and forth this week is very hard to decipher. Another day where he is listed as a DNP, but another day where the timeline is full of clips that we are seeing. TJ Watt is officially limited in participation as he trends towards playing. I believe Pickens is the one that matters, I would say, as much in this game with his importance to this Steelers offense. If Pickens is not in this game, this number is going to get to 7, in my opinion. And so at 6 -15 at Chris or 6 -10 at Buckeye, to me, those are the better numbers on the Ravens you are going to see between now and Saturday. If both guys are ruled in, I think Watt is going to have the chance to be healthier. The impact Pickens might have on this game is probably reduced even if he plays. If he is officially ruled out, I do think we see the Ravens take on a little bit of money and this number push up towards 7. So we get to Sunday, Cleveland on the road at the Cincinnati Bengals. DTR game for Cleveland, heavily discussed yesterday on his impact to this team, to this offense, and what we're going to see from the Cleveland Browns. Perhaps how the bar is lowered with DTR. We haven't seen the total react much after the news got to 47. We haven't seen the 7.5s bet yet. Chris did go to 8 minus 10. I have a hard time seeing who might want to bet Cleveland with DTR at this number at this point in the week. If anything, I think we see the 7.5s match what Chris is posting this morning and move up a little bit throughout the course of today and tomorrow. Detroit on the road at the Chicago Bears. This is still 6.5 left to right across the screen for the Lions. Still 48 on the total. There are a couple signs that we might see this trend down slightly. FanDuel, an expensive 47.5 this morning. We're seeing Bet Online at 47.5 as well. Pinnacle 47 minus 122. So two books slightly off to 48, but shaded towards the 48. The key three I always look at, Chris Circa, Buckeye, 48 each on the board. Arizona on the road at the Carolina Panthers. Still 4.5 for the Arizona Cardinals. On the road is the favorite for now. Looks like a number that is definitely going to move to 5 later on today. Total over 46.5. Gave it out yesterday as part of the Sam P video that I do every single week. Talked about it on the Sunday night show. Rob and I end up on these weird totals, and we have for the last couple of weeks. It is not intentional. We're not talking about these. We're not planning it. I saw on his show as well. He's on this over too. So it is another Cardinals over for us. I mean, this almost looks like a game that those other two were like 10-7 at half each and found a way to get weird in the second half. I mean, this is a big number for the Panthers. I was talking on the Sampy video. I'm like, this is a tight card. It's pretty thin in what you can find. It's a big number. This one's going to get weird too. I have the expectation that is going to happen. But certainly it's a big James Conner game. The Arizona Cardinals offense is going to open up because they're facing zone, because they can run the football, because of the heavy personnel that they're going to use to just bully the Panthers defense up front. And then for both of these teams, it's just a massive step down in terms of the opposing defenses that they have faced. They're not facing the Vikings. They're not facing the Chiefs. They're not facing these elite pass rushers like the Cowboys. Two bad defenses going against each other in a bit of a reprieve, and you have the Cardinals still pushing to at least try to stay alive for the playoffs. It's a great profile for an over. The total is slightly higher at 46.5. It's going to trend higher, in my opinion. But this is another one. You know it's going to start off weird, and then you get that flurry late is what I'm expecting. God forbid there's ever an over that you can bet in this league, or it's a nice 28-21 at halftime and you don't have to worry about it. Those just never seem to happen anymore, but we'll see. I found it funny, went back and checked up on the video later and just was seeing who everyone was on, and yep, sure enough, we matched on that same total. So here we go again with another one of these totals. New England on the road at the Buffalo Bills. Still Bills 14, still 46.5 on the total. The stuff with Mayo, it's getting really odd for how the media is coming out and attacking him, how he's kind of throwing guys under the bus. I know how he handled things between Brissett and May early in the season was not handled well. He looks like a very different coach at the podium, and I don't know if there's a lack of trust there. It's really uncomfortable to watch. I have a hard time figuring out how that might boil over into this game. I see these videos, and the kids today are saying cringe is the word. It's hard not to when you're watching it. I don't know what's gotten into him, but this is a tough locker room to decipher right now behind the scenes in New England. Philadelphia on the road at Washington. 3 was the stopping point for Philadelphia. It got that low. I mean, the amount of emphasis on the move in favor of Washington throughout the week has been significant. And a few weeks ago, we talked about it, where I know reverse line movement is always a popular topic, and it's always a big talking point, and everybody loves it. When you take the betting split aspect out of it, because of all the noise and inaccuracy that comes with betting splits, and you're just thinking about line movement and limits throughout the week, and when they bump up, and when moves come back into the market against what we're seeing from other moves earlier in the week, that Washington move early in the week, very strong, very telling. But now you start to see a more telling move, in my opinion, come back on Philadelphia and push this up to 3.5. If this continues up and you have that balance or imbalance, rather, of the early money on Washington and the late money on Philadelphia, you start to look at this game a lot differently. If this is still hanging around at 3 and that Washington move holds late in the week, you have a different opinion. But now you start to see this move back in favor of Philadelphia if this continues to push up. I mean, it started at 4.5 earlier in the week. There's still some more room to go. But to me, this move back towards Philadelphia at this point in the week, with the limits being bumped up, if it continues, is going to switch my opinion of how strong that Washington move was earlier in the week that we talked about yesterday on the podcast. New York Giants on the road at the Atlanta Falcons. 8.5 is the number across the board for Atlanta. Total up to 42 across the board. Drew Lock will start at quarterback for New York. Michael Penix in for Atlanta. What also I think is worth noting for this game, I would encourage everybody to go look at Art Stapleton's tweet yesterday. He was being criticized for making up names of players because of who he said is going to be getting time playing in the secondary for the Giants. I honestly thought it was one of those fake accounts when I saw it. I looked up one of the players because I was like, there's no way. And he's an international player that came over from Ghana who's going to get starting time for the Giants this week in the secondary. I'm not going to attempt a name on air. That is not out of disrespect, but it is so thin at the back end for the Giants on defense that if this is ever a game where the Falcons offense opens up with Penix and we see kind of optimal play calling that isn't a 98% run rate on first down, there should be ample opportunity for this team to find big plays down the field. Another interesting point on this game, Sam Hoppen posted the composite ratings yesterday. The New York Giants are now 9 points worse than an average football team in those ratings. The 2 past years, Carolina and Houston collectively were 6.2 and 7.3 points worse than an average team at the end of the year. That was dead bottom of the league. The Giants are now 2.5 points worse than those two teams, which I think is a fair disagreement point for this game if you're considering betting on the Giants. I'm not advocating for that, but is this Giants team this historically bad? I think it's a fair question to ask. Tennessee on the road at Indianapolis. A crazy week for pressers and injury news, really. I was impressed for really the first time from Brian Callahan at a presser all season. I thought he has been very indecisive. I thought the way he handled Will Levis was kind of immature, but you're giving him a bit of a pass, first-year head coach. The way he came out at the podium yesterday and defended his team when they were called out for being soft, and he stood up for them at this point in the season where the season is done, they can't cover a number, they look semi-lifeless at times on the field, they're making so many mistakes. Not only earlier in the week did he get to bench the quarterback, it seems like he's wanted to bench since September, but he made a pretty strong statement that in a way called out accountability, called out the team, and then the stance he took for an NFL coach to be that verbal and that animated, especially a guy like Callahan who's certainly had interesting facial expressions on sidelines of games, especially following Will Levis mistakes, but to kind of see that shift at this point in the season, pretty telling. Pretty telling. We've seen over money come into this game. We're up to 42.5. The Colts are down to 3.5-point favorites. Juju Brent's possibly eligible to return this week, which would be another boost to the Colts secondary. I think this total keeps getting bet up from 42.5, and we see a little bit more over money come into the market. With the switch to Rudolph, I think that's going to kind of catch on, and we're going to see some over money into the market the next couple of days. LA Rams on the road at the New York Jets. 3 minus 20, still the point spread for the Rams. 46.5 now the total, but a half-point move down from yesterday today at the key 3 books on the board. Minnesota on the road at the Seattle Seahawks. Vikings a soft 3-point favorite across the board. Geno Smith, full participant at practice on Sunday night against the Packers. I thought that was it. The way that it was handled, the way he went off the field. Monday morning, the McDonald radio interviews in Seattle area talking about structurally intact kind of gives you hope. But here he is, Wednesday, full practice, good to go. I think it's partially time of year. Obviously, playoff pictures making this perhaps a little bit more generous in the reporting than the reality might be on the field. What is not generous is that the Seahawks listed both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet as DNPs. It all of a sudden sounds like Kenneth Walker has a better chance of playing at running back on Sunday than Charbonnet does. Something to keep in mind. Mike McDonald called out Ryan Grubb in media to run the football more early in games. If both running backs happen to miss, who is getting those carries? This is going to be bedlam in the prop market. I can't imagine you guys playing fantasy. That's going to be a lot to decipher too. There's going to be possibly somebody that it's going to be a Sincere McCormick redo with a guy that nobody's heard of possibly getting like 10, 12 carries in this game because there's no one else to carry it. And McDonald wants to run the football a ton, and you have a hurt quarterback in the pocket against an aggressive pass rush where you must have some resemblance of a run game. Let's see how that situation plays out later today at Seahawks practice in the afternoon. San Francisco on the road at Miami, still 44.5, still one for Miami or a couple of pick'ems beginning to show as 49ers money continues to come into the market. Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Aiden O'Connell back at practice, going to be good to go at quarterback for the Raiders. And that is enough to draw intrigue in the market. 2 -05 at Chris, 1.5 at Circa, up from a pick'em earlier in the week. $480 tickets for this game to get in. Wow. And they're selling too, which is crazy to think about. Tampa Bay on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. 4 -05 at Chris, 3.5 at Circa. Cowboys money continues to linger in the market. This was 4.5, has come down a little bit over the last 24 hours. The total at 48.5. We saw it get to 50. That was enough. We've seen it as low as 47.5. We're now settled in the middle. Nothing overly noteworthy has come out about this game. However, amid all the pressers and conversations, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line is openly talking about how they have bets against each other in game to see who can get more sacks and more pressures on the opposing quarterback. And Levante David is currently winning those allegedly and is labeled to be on a hot streak. This is a defensive front for the Buccaneers. This had guys kind of banged up at times throughout the season, had some late starters as well, really starting to come together. That's kind of colorful commentary that stands out to me at this time of the year where you're fighting for the playoffs. We know Todd Bowles loves to send pressure. We know he loves to try send extra guys on blitzes. There's kind of a character building here with this defensive front, which could be bad news for Cooper Rush and how he's performed under pressure the last couple of weeks. Monday Night Football, New Orleans on the road at the Green Bay Packers. Packers money into the market, 13.5. Take it out. 14, taken out. 14.5. Now the number across the board, total 42.5. Alvin Kamara's status very much in doubt for this game as he continues to deal with a groin injury. This is another big favorite for another big week against a team that is near the bottom of the ratings where that favorite is getting bet, similar to what we saw Baltimore against New York last week, seeing it here with the Packers at home. Curious to see if we see the Bills follow suit as well. These moves have all happened later in the week. This one of the earlier ones. Late week money has been very willing to lay these big prices the last couple of weeks with these big favorites against these teams that are in ways kind of written off for dead. That will do it for me today. I hope everybody has a fantastic Thursday. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll chat with you to wrap everything up bright and early tomorrow morning.